Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry. This is episode 85. We have two 85s in the Bengals Ring of Honor. Isaac Curtis, and of course, Chad Johnson, who, if you're watching this, you're probably under 45. And Chad was probably your favorite player growing up in the 2000s. And he was so much fun. And whenever I think 85, I automatically think of him. And T. Higgins probably should have kept 85. Now that we've definitely had more good times with 85 than we did 5. So we'll see how it goes this year if he can redeem himself in that single digit number. But I did want to talk about a few things that I said last episode. I wanted to eventually get to the schedule. I already had things pre-recorded when the schedule came out, so that was a lot of film review, and we just caught up on all that. But I do want to get back to the film review. I want to watch the few picks that we haven't gotten to yet. There's some undrafted guys that I find intriguing. It's a long summer, so this is when the content creation is more of a planned out, longer picture thing. And we've got a lot of time. And we've got OTAs coming up and things like that. And we'll have fun with that when that happens. But for now, I think it's a good time to use the schedule. And maybe in the brand of 85, death, taxes, and 85 will always be open. I hope you did your taxes already because it's too late. But the open part is the discussion today. And we're going to start with the schedule. I want to rank some things and show you how I look at the schedule, how I view it from an analytical perspective. And it's usually led me in the right direction. So I'm going to pull that up and we'll get going on that. But I want to rank a few things from that schedule. Maybe not just the toughest team we play. How about what's the toughest quarterbacks? Let's rank them. Because it keeps it off of, we're not going to, maybe we'll put Joe Burrow in there, but it keeps the pressure off of us of arguing, oh, Burrow's a top 3 quarterback, top 5 quarterback. Let's rank the other guys. And then finally, I want to go in more into the Dax Hill conversation now that it's officially he's moving to corner. Well, at least it's public. I mean, we knew about this a while ago. We've talked about it on this show, talked about it on Twitter, and subscribers. If you subscribe to my Twitter account at Joe Goodberry, as soon as it happened, as soon as he was told, we talked about it and shared the news as well. But I've expressed my frustration with that entire process and with moving him to corner, but I did do some data digging and it brought up an interesting conversation that I think we'll end the show with. And the data, it's hard to argue with. So a lot of data in this episode. Let's first jump into the schedule and I'll show you how I look at it and how I let information and stats guide me here on my expectations for the season. So I've got this all on a spreadsheet, and a lot of it don't make sense right now for you, but let's zoom in a little bit and focus on column A, where the schedule is laid out. Week 1 against the Patriots, opening against the Patriots. The Bengals have the biggest advantage, or they're the biggest favorites of week 1. I saw an 8.5 spread already. That's pretty significant, as we would expect, though. Anytime you've got a rookie quarterback on the other side, and maybe not. Like, I guess I'm assuming all the rookies are going to be playing by the time they get to them, even week 3, Commanders, Jaden Daniels, and then all the way down to the Broncos, Bo Nix, week 17. But Patriots and then Chiefs. So you go from one of your biggest advantages week 1 to your biggest disadvantage, where you're the biggest underdog in week 2 against the Chiefs. I saw 4.5 points early betting lines. But what do all these numbers mean on the right side? So Patriots, Chiefs, let's go through real quick. Patriots, Chiefs, Commanders, Panthers, Ravens, Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, Cowboys, Titans, Browns, Broncos, and then finish with the Steelers. We knew all of these opponents. It's on a rotation. You know which teams you're playing, you know which teams you're not playing, and then it's just the final few teams at the end of the season. Depending on if you come in second place in your division, you're going to play another second place division team. So that's what happens here, and that's how it goes. And this year, the Bengals are playing the AFC West, it appears, and the NFC East. So you play those divisions, and it rotates. Now, the primetime games and all that, Bengals got the full slate, the 425 games too. I'm not even going to really get into that. I just want to get into how I view the schedule. While I love instantly what's the bye week, how many primetime games are there, and are there any weird scheduling date type conflict stuff, which the Bengals go through a stretch here at the end where they play a bunch right in a row. I think it was 3 games in 13 days because they have a Thursday night. They have 2 Thursday night games, which is crazy. Anyways, the numbers, what do they mean? So I've got a -3 up into a +3 on the side just for home and away. And is it a close game or not? This is a loose way to put in uh, an easy projection for what the point spread would be. And I don't try to go as far as 8.5 for the Patriots because I don't ever think any game is really that crazy. That's, this is for my own balancing. So you'll see like a -3, basically taking away 3 points from the Bengals, giving 3 points to the Bengals at the Chiefs. So that makes sense, right? Any close game here. And why is the Panthers only one? Why does the Bengals only get one? Because they're at the Panthers. So try to keep it within reason. Those don't really matter much. Only a small fraction of what I use. What I use, though, is down at the bottom. Let's look at row 19. The opponent quarterback rating the last 2 years. So your passer rating, your NFL passer rating. The average has been the last 10 years or so gone from 88 to about 93 for passer rating. So you want to be over a 93 passer rating in order to really be a difference maker at quarterback. Now, what do I use for rookies? Like here, if Drake May is starting, is a 78. This is from a study I did when Joe Burrow was starting his rookie year. So it's from 2020, where usually first round picks tend to be in like the 78 to 84 range. Since it's week 1 with Drake May, I put him on the low end of it, and I ended up using 78 for a bunch because it's early in the season, Jaden Daniels, and because I didn't like Bo Nix a ton. And so even though it's late in the year, I don't expect him to have a great year, and maybe he surprises and is better than expected. So I use 78 for the rookies. Otherwise, for like Pat Mahomes and that 100.3 there at the top, that's a strong last 2 years. His passer rating has been pretty good. Now, last year was worse than the year before, but still, we use a 2-year range because anyone could have a down year, have an injured year. You could have new coordinators, whatever the case may be. What are the influences and factors that could change that up? I use the last 2 seasons. So you see right off the bat, Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles, Ravens again, Chargers with Herbert, Steelers. You may be surprised to know that Russell Wilson wasn't terrible, right? Last year, he wasn't. He was actually pretty decent within the confines of that scheme. He's been okay, but Cowboys, Dak Prescott obviously has been super productive for them. Now, guys that are in year 2, and there's a whole bunch like Bryce Young. You typically, now this is from a study from 2021 where I was trying to project the Bengals going into 2021, and I had a lot of success there. I said that I think the Bengals can be a playoff team, and they're in the Super Bowl window. And at the time, people thought that was pretty crazy. But the way Burrow performed as a rookie, and then adding in an extra, it's between 8 to 12 points in the quarterback rating, very similar for the PFF grade, which we'll get to next. Usually will boost them up into year 2, and you will have a good idea what that player is going to be in year 2. So for Bryce Young to get to an 84 isn't out of the realm of a possibility. It's not crazy. It would still be slightly below average, but he didn't have a great rookie year. For Daniel Jones, the last 2 years, Deshaun Watson, the last 2 years, he's been terrible. It's really the thing that's holding the Browns back lately. The roster is really well constructed, and they keep packing the cap. Is Deshaun Watson has been absolutely horrendous. Gardner Minshew actually statistically been a little bit better than Deshaun Watson in terms of passer rating. So then you see guys down here like Will Levis. Will Levis was actually decent as a rookie. If he takes the same step forward that Bryce Young does, he could actually be pretty good and come away with an average year in year 2. So an 88 would be solid and make the Titans pretty competitive at the very least. The roster's not great, but if you can get an 88 out of him, you can focus on the other areas of that roster that needs help. And then PFF offensive grade from the last 2 years. Sorry for the stumble there. From the last 2 years, let me make sure I shrink this so we can all see it. For the last 2 years, your PFF offensive grade. This isn't just your passing grade. I use offensive grade for guys like Lamar Jackson because his passing grade can be a little bit lower, but the running and things like that helps you produce a high-level offense. Same with like a Jalen Hurts. While they're good passers, don't get me wrong. The difference, I want to include their running ability because it makes a difference in the games. So you'll see right off the bat, rookies typically do not perform very well. A 65 is expected for those guys, especially early in their careers. You may get later in the season or year two guys. So let's take a Will Levis, giving him a 75, which is right in line with a Deshaun Watson. Again, he has not been good. And then who's the other one? The Panthers, 68. That's how bad Bryce Young was last year. That even an improvement, a same level of improvement, should only be about a 68. Maybe gets to a 69, 70. Panthers fans are probably on edge a little bit there. Daniel Jones getting back to a 70. So what does that all equal? So for the formula over here, for getting a final number in column F, gives me your opponent score. How good are these teams? It's a long way of talking and saying, all right, we don't expect the Patriots to be very good at the quarterback position. And all this premise comes off of whichever quarterback plays the best in a head-to-head matchup typically wins the game. And it's like 92% over the last 12 years or so when I looked at this. Whoever has a higher passer rating, because that includes your yards per attempt, so your total yards, you got explosive plays, your completion percentage, which is going to help on third downs and things like that, touchdown to interception ratio, which obviously points on the board versus taking points off, higher quarterback rating typically, while it's not a perfect stat, I know this, typically produces the winner, unless you end up with two quarterbacks just gunslinging, right? And that happens at times, which you may expect in the Chiefs versus the Bengals game. So what does this say? We expect the Chiefs to be really good. We expect the Ravens to be good. We expect the Eagles to be good. The Chargers to be good. And because Herbert's good. I mean, their roster isn't great, but yeah, the Cowboys to be good. Other than that, Steelers to be competitive, Titans to be competitive. You got the Browns to be competitive. Again, this is just from a quarterback standpoint. We know their roster in Cleveland is much better than this and should keep them in competition for playoff spots. Now, that is the opponent score. We get to the Bengals. Last 2 years passer rating for Joe Burrow is a 95.9. Lowered a little bit from what he was last year. Typically, if he would have had, let's say we used 2021 and 2022, this would be 100 and some change. It'd be very, very high. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to be unfair because there's a chance he isn't 100% of himself. And we'll talk health and all that. I mean, I'm not saying I don't expect him to be healthy. I expect him to be healthy. But there's a chance he's rusty and dealing with things. We've seen it almost every single year. And then his PFF offensive grade the past 2 years, combine them together, get you about an 88 total. Use that, average that together, brings you about a 92. Now, the Cincinnati advantage is the next column here. And we're getting to it. We're getting all the way over to the end. And some of you are probably already peeking ahead, but stay with me. The Cincinnati advantage here. How much better in the 92 over the 65? And then I factor in the home away split to either enhance or lower their grade, right? So the Bengals have a huge advantage over a team like the Patriots, but they've got a disadvantage against the Chiefs. Huge advantage over the Commanders in week 3. Good advantage over the Panthers still. A coin flip type game. Slight advantage over the Ravens, not much to make a difference. That 1.3 is really nothing. Good advantage over the Browns, or Giants, I should say. Good advantage at quarterback over the Browns. Now, if I really wanted to get technical with this, you could say, well, the Browns typically make Joe Burrow play a little bit worse, and that makes the things, much tighter. And I would agree with that. But historically versus over the stretch of the season, this is what we're trying to look at. We know the individual matchups with the Browns have been an issue. Eagles should be a coin flip game. Raiders, Bengals have a big advantage there. Ravens at Ravens. So a little bit different here from this one. Just a little bit. Gives the Bengals a little disadvantage at that one. Chargers game should be close again. Steelers, Bengals have an advantage, not a huge advantage. Cowboys, close, slight advantage to the Cowboys in Dallas. Tennessee Titans, Bengals have the advantage. That's how we're going to finish the year now also. So like after this bye week, only one disadvantage game, and that's against Dallas. I assume we all feel the same way. You can beat Dallas in Dallas, even though they haven't twice in the Burrow era. So we've got to handle that. Burrow was not healthy for either one of those. So he didn't play the first one. That was one after his knee. And then the second one was clearly when he was coming back from that appendix, he didn't look strong and healthy at all. And then advantage over the Titans, advantage over the Browns in Cincinnati. This one's even bigger than before, where it was 10.5. Broncos, huge advantage, and then Steelers ending it, even though it's in Pittsburgh, still a good advantage. Now we're going to scroll even more to the right here. Win probability. Now, all that factored in, you should handle the Patriots. It should be a strong win for the Bengals. We're giving them a win here in the likely outcome. Chiefs, really the only game. Look all the way down K, all down the K column. Only the Chiefs are in the red here. So only one under a 50% likelihood that the Bengals win. Fine. It is what it is. Not every game is going to be a huge success. Or you going, and we know we can beat the Chiefs. We know the Bengals can. Hopefully it turns into a 3-point game again. And this time your guy comes out on top because we know we have and the Bengals can. 90% against the Commanders. Even though I like their roster, I think they've done a lot of good things early in the season. You're expected to win that game. Panthers, same thing. Even though it's in Carolina, it's the only reason why it's a little bit different there than the Commanders and Patriots, which these are the top 3 picking teams the last couple of years, other than the Bears, who traded up to get that pick or traded with the Panthers to get that pick. Ravens is a 50-50 shot. Browns, 75% likely. Or Giants, I should say, 75% likely. 65 for the Browns. Again, I know the head-to-head matchup isn't that strong. We know we're a little bit weary of the Browns. Eagles, 50-50 game. Raiders, 90%. You should win that. 50-50 Ravens, 50-50 Chargers before your bye week. And then look, like I said, everything is expected to win. Maybe a coin flip against the Cowboys. So what does that likely come out to? 11-6 is a likely scenario there. If you roll the dice, if you flip coins for all the 50-50 games and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, so maybe you go 3-2, or maybe you go 2-3 in those 50-50 games and go 12-5 instead. I have them going 2-3 here. Yeah, that's right. Out of those 5 50-50, that puts them at 11-6. If they go 3-2, they're 12-5 in a likely outcome, and you're competing for the number 1 seed, which is typically 13 wins or better, maybe 14 sometimes. In the best case scenario, you probably get to 14 wins. And some people might say best case is 17-0. Yes, but no one's projecting that. No one's predicting something like that, even though it's a very favorable schedule. You get through the Chiefs, and maybe, right? Maybe, but I do have a loss against the Ravens here. I do have a loss against the Eagles potentially, and then one against the Browns. So, like, even in a best case scenario, you slip up a couple times, and you still can end up with that number 1 seed. Worst case scenario is likely what happened last year, and they went 9-8 last year. But they could have gone easily 8-9. They could have lost one more of those games or slipped one that they pulled out at the end with Jake Browning. But still, I'm not going to focus on the worst case scenario. It is what it is. I just put it up there for even with this schedule. And if something disastrous happened, they should not be any worse than competitive into and through December. That was the point of that one. But I have for the likelihood of what I think will happen, more than likely, it's a win against the Patriots, a loss to the Chiefs, then rattling off 2 wins, Commanders, Panthers, losing to the Ravens, and then bouncing back with a win against the Giants, losing to the Browns, bouncing back with wins against the Eagles and Raiders before a loss to the Ravens. That's 2 losses to the Ravens. Maybe I split that. Maybe that's how they get to 12-5 instead. Win against the Chargers in LA, win against the Steelers, loss to the Cowboys, maybe their only hard game in the second half. And then the win against Titans, Browns, Broncos seals their playoff fate, maybe the division. And then a loss there to the Steelers while they're resting starters in week 18, put them at 11-6. But again, that's how I look at it. It's very quarterback data based. Do you have a quarterback better than the other team? Yes, in a lot of games. Almost all of these games, other than the Chiefs game, right? So take that for what it is. That's how I view it. It's worked well for me for a long time now. And it's just basic looking at how, and when I get to regular season projections, when we get there to when we're week 1, I'll say, okay, Drake May versus Joe Burrow, be clear. But like when we get to Chiefs and Joe Burrow, I'll say, okay, how does Burrow normally play against the Chiefs? How does Mahomes normally play against the Bengals? And that's why those games are so close. And then you get to the Browns. How does Joe Burrow normally play against the Browns? And how does Deshaun Watson normally play against the Bengals? And that's why those games have been what they've been. So that's how I give an overview. And when you get to the end here and you sit there and you go, okay, 11-6, likely, maybe 12-5, best case, maybe you're getting 14 wins. Guys, let's gear up. That's fun. This is the fun. Looks like another good season for us, or at least a fun and competitive one. And that's all you can really ask for. Anything past that is bonus. And some outside fan may see that and say, what do you mean it's bonus? My point is you want to be as competitive for as many years as possible. get Joe Burrow into the playoffs. You have a very good shot at doing that this year. And if an injury pops up again, maybe they should rest him this time and get him ready, because the schedule is that, don't want to say easy, but favorable for the Bengals in the quarterback department in a lot of ways. So that's how I look at it. Now let's have fun with that schedule. If I believe that it's such a quarterback game and it's quarterback versus quarterback, let's rank these quarterbacks. And I think an easy one to start us off is Pat Mahomes of the Chiefs. I still believe he is the best quarterback in the league, and someone has to dethrone him. I like our chances, but he definitely is that guy. Now I think it gets interesting for us. We don't play Josh Allen this year. He's not on the schedule. Josh would be the only guy that I think is really the one that's competing with Joe Burrow. Different players, completely different types. Allen is more of a wild stallion, hard to bring down, makes crazy big plays that a lot of guys can't make. But to be honest with you, you need those plays in order to separate yourself from a lot of good quarterbacking teams. And his running ability makes him such a weapon. That the Bills have won a lot of games, put up a lot of points, and have been very, very successful under Josh Allen. Still, we don't have Josh Allen. So the next guy, is it Lamar Jackson? A lot of people believe that Lamar Jackson is the next best. He's two-time MVPs on his way to a Hall of Fame ending to his career. Hard to not put him number two. I think if we even put him as a placeholder there, that's fair. I want to bring Dak Prescott up here much closer. Not saying he's number three. Just want to put him in that range because I think the conversation is going to be Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts. And then from there, I think we can back off a little bit. And I think this is when the schedule really starts to get exciting from our perspective, because we're like, already number two is Lamar Jackson. We could beat Lamar. We're not that worried about it. Number three, Dak Prescott. I am going to keep it number three. I'm going to have him over Jalen Hurts. And why? I think Prescott, maybe it's easier to start with Hurts. Hurts, that running ability, those strong legs, that short yardage really, really makes him good. I think he's got more weapons than Dak Prescott. I think he's got a better offensive line than Dak Prescott, especially last year. And yet Dak was still lights out and tremendous up until that playoffs. And that's how it's been for him. He's really been really, really good in the regular season until the playoffs come around. And I think with Dak, you get a guy who mentally is a little bit better than Hurts. I think he is a little bit more accurate, has a little bit more touch, but he can't move. It's getting worse and worse for Prescott, where those injuries happened, and then he looks slower than normal. And he's a big dude, and I could say if you wanted to put Jalen Hurts over Dak Prescott, I would not argue that at all. I think it's close enough. I think we're looking at B plus tier quarterbacks. I think the only two elite guys here are Mahomes and Jackson, and I even think there's a gap between them. If we were to put Joe Burrow in this list, I think we would all be in agreement to let's put Burrow between Mahomes and Jackson, and the rest can fall as however you like it. Justin Herbert, though, to me, is the only other guy worth talking about, and I kind of wanted to leave him because I don't know where to put Herbert lately. I'm still bullish on his upside. I'm still bullish on his physical talents, his ability to run, move, throw the ball the length of the football field, make some crazy throws. I'm like, his throws per snap are just insane. For whatever reason, though, he has not been great the last 2 years. He really hasn't been. I remember 2 years ago, we were thinking they need to fire the coordinator, the coach, everything's going wrong, everything's good. And then last year he gets hurt and he's dealing with injuries. We talk about how many injuries Burrow's had. I feel like last couple of years, Herbert now, it's been, a bunch of small nagging things, but at the same time, it has affected his play and his ability to be an elite level quarterback. And I think he still is. And if you were here to say, well, I like Herbert more than Dak Prescott, I'd say, okay. If you were to say, I like him definitely over Jalen Hurts, I would agree with you. And I'm going to put Herbert number 2 behind Prescott, or number 4, I guess, in this list. I was going to say of that tier, of that trio. And I don't want this to seem like I don't like Hurts. I mean, Hurts in that Super Bowl played as good as you could possibly play and still lost. And if you'd have won, we'd probably think of him much differently because he played so damn well in that game that it gets forgotten. But I don't think if these are the 5, then, because look at the rest, right? I mean, I think at that point we can say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good quarterbacks on the schedule. That's it. And yeah, you have to play some of them twice. Like Lamar Jackson, you got to play him twice. So who's the next best guy? Honestly, it could be Russell Wilson. I know he was cut. I know he's been traded. The last 2 years for him, not ideal for what he used to be. But he's still decent. And for what they're paying him, that's a steal. But we're not going to factor in what they're going to pay him, because then if we did, we put Watson much lower than this. But I still think Russell Wilson can be an average level quarterback. And if he is for the Steelers, that can make them pretty good. They can make them really hard to beat. They weren't getting that. Let's be honest. Not even the last couple of years of Big Ben, they weren't getting that. So it's been a while since the Steelers have gotten average level quarterback play. That's all they should really expect and hope for from Wilson at this stage in his career. And I think he can give them that. So I'm going to put him as the next best, but I definitely think there's a tier there. Deshaun Watson being after him, only because Watson has played better. Was it 4 years ago now at this point? But we've seen it. The last 2 years always been terrible. He has been absolutely dreadful the last 2 years. There's no way to cut it. And that's not even me being a Browns hater. He's been bad. And he's going to hold their team back if he continues to be bad. But having said that, Daniel Jones is bad. And I don't think he's good. I think he's had good stretches. I think he's good with Brian Dable. And he can move a little bit. He's got He's got talents, and they have weapons now, I guess, with Malik Neighbors. So we'll see if he can bounce back and get into the right trajectory of where I think they hoped when they gave him that extension. I think they knew the deal, but at the same time, I think they hoped Daniel Jones would take another step under Dable, and he wasn't able to do that last year before getting hurt. Next is basically all the young guys recently, and I'm going to put Minshew at the bottom, even though Minshew hasn't been that bad. Like, to me, there's no upside in Minshew and starting Minshew. But honestly, if you say Minshew and Watson have been the same player, or at least have produced the same, I know what you mean. So from there, I would probably have, this may have shaken out the exact way I would have it. Drake May over Jaden Daniels. I got no problem with that. I think the Commanders were a bit weird taking Daniels over May. To me, Daniels, his slight frame, older age, he takes a lot of hits. Sounds like I'm describing Joe Burrow coming out of LSU. Burrow was much better in the pocket and with accuracy and intelligence at that time. Not that Daniels, I don't think he's got an intelligence issue at all, actually. When I watched him, I thought I was actually very impressed with the NFL level offense they were running at LSU once again. So Bryce Young is the hard one here, because Young, to me, at Alabama was very good in a lot of ways. He just really was small. He could bounce back in year two and be, honestly, if we come out of this and Bryce Young's right here, would anybody be shocked? So, like, that's the trap game of all of this. That's the trap game for the Bengals, is the Panthers a little bit, because they've done a lot. They've had a lot of talent. They've had a lot of players. And if the quarterback takes that year two step, the way people were overlooking the Bengals in 2021, that's how it sneaks up on you. So I'm going to keep him here for now, because that rookie year was pretty bad. And they don't have a lot of weapons, too. So I don't want to hold that against them completely. I'm going to keep Will Levis here, because I wasn't big on Will Levis coming out. And I don't think they've got okay. Like, to me, would you rather have the young weapons that the Panthers are trying to assemble, plus Adam Thielen, or a bunch of the older but better weapons in Tennessee with less upside in them, and less, who's the guy, first round pick a couple years ago they got for AJ Brown, turns around and emerges in year 3, or is it 4 already? Yikes. Anyways, Bo Nix, then Gardner Minshew rounding it up. But really, what am I saying here by doing this exercise? 5 good quarterbacks and up that the Bengals will face this year. And again, they'll face Lamar twice. So yeah, that again tells you the schedule is pretty favorable for the Bengals. And yes, I would put Joe Burrow right there in between 1 and 2. All right, here we have a new spreadsheet, new page on it, and I'm full of these. Honestly, I keep a master sheet with all the content I want to get to eventually. And when the Bengals told Dax they're moving him to corner, I was like, they're screwing this up. You got a premium pick. He was a great prospect. You moved him to a spot he never played. Now you're going to play him at corner, which if you're playing him at slot corner, great. But I said to myself, well, let's look at the data. What are the chances that Dax would have been a good safety after in year 2, he had like a 52 PFF grade? And I know PFF grades, use them for what they are, but they are a metric we can use that also I've used in the past when looking at Jackson Carman, looking at Cordell Volson, looking at, there was one other, Zach Carter, and said the way they performed as rookies typically indicates how they'll perform throughout their careers. And I know that's like saying, what, just because the guy's a bad rookie, he's going to be bad? Well, not always. So if you look at what I got here, first year PFF grade, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, right? So this goes back 6 years. Then you have your career average PFF grade, which you look at someone like Jesse Bates, who we'll highlight with a 76.9. His prime average, which are years 3, 4, and 5. I think it's 3, 4, and 5. It might go to 6. I could probably check the formula real fast. It goes to J. So up to 6th. Okay. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 prime years give him an 80. Now this is sorted by the prime years here, I believe. So these are the best players at safety over the last 6 years. Guys like Javon Holland, Antoine Winfield Jr., who just became the highest paid safety in the league. Melon Fonwu only started the 1 year last year, so we're going to skip over him real quick. Jesse Bates, Cam Curl sat out there for a little bit in free agency, but ultimately got a deal. His really only one good year there, year 3, as you can see, the 82.9. The rest have been mid to high 60s. Xavier McKinney got a really strong deal. Has 2 good years, a 75 here and an 88 here. So if you get an idea of what I'm saying here is looking at the averages and then career averages, guys like Derwin James, because he had an 88, 78, 77, then a 60 last year. The better players are at the top. Amani Hooker, Micah Fitzpatrick, Alohi Gilman was a free agent. Geno Stone, our guy Geno Stone, we could highlight him a little bit, right? First time he ever played, got a 71. Second, followed that up with a 72 in his 4th year. So, again, what am I trying to say here? We're going to scroll down. I'm trying to hold it together because we're going to scroll down a little bit. And Dax Hill is down here at the 87th row, having a 51.6 for his second year last year. His first year starting, he scored a 51.6. So the question becomes, when you get someone like this, you say, okay, how often does a 51 or a 52 or a 55, anyone under a 60 really, turn into a good player? How often does that happen? How often does he turn that around and start to score a 70 plus? All right, well, let's look at these other guys over the past 6, 7 years, and let's see how often it happens. You got a guy like Alani Johnson, who was a corner / safety, so maybe similar to Dax, get a 30 and then a 65 and then back down to a 32. Okay, that's not what you want. Marcel Harris, I have no idea who he is. He was a 6th round pick. A 41 and then a 65 and then back to a 41. So again, they revert back to what they were. You can get a Nick Scott who didn't start until year 3, similar to Dax, 57, 54, 42. Again, we don't want that. This is Dax. We don't want him to end up like this. Miles Hartsfield, you tell me who that is, undrafted, 51 and then a 52. How about Jonathan Abram, who was a 1st round pick that busted? He had a 37 as a rookie, or not a rookie, his 2nd year. So he didn't qualify, didn't play enough snaps first year. 2nd year was a 37. High of a 57, then back to a 49, which is right in the average. Year 3, we're getting right to your average typically of what we expect you to be. Will Harris, a 55, didn't play year 2 or didn't qualify year 2, 43, 64. Again, not great. So let's see if we can find someone who does match. Mike Edwards, who's a solid contributing player, and 58, 64, 52, 57. Okay. So Jalen Hawkins, 59, 59. It doesn't happen. Here's the best hope, I guess. Nasir Adderley with a 50.8, very close to the 51 that Dax had, and then a 67, and then a 62, and then did not qualify. I don't think he's still in the league anymore. Julian Love got a 70 originally and bounced back to a 72, so he's shown the upside as a rookie. Not really comparable, I guess, maybe. Julian Blackmon, a 59 to start, and then a 60, a 62, and a 68 being his high. Is that the best case scenario? Or is Terrell Edmonds, who is now a full 10, 12 points higher than Dax Hill, 63, 71, 58, 69, 63, again, middling, even at best. So at best, we're probably looking at a guy like a Nasir Adderley. I mean, get to the mid-range guys. Is there any in the 50s here? We got a 60, Brandon Jones, and then a 53 in year 2, probably similar. He gave us one good year of a 75. Is that worth keeping Dax at safety? So the data says that Dax will never be a good safety. Never. Why hold on to it any longer? If Dax won't be a good safety, why hold on to it? go get Geno Stone. Go sign Von Bell again and move Dax and try and hope for the best and salvage something from him. But on the hopeful side, oh my, Jordan Battle with that 82.5 as a rookie. That 82.5 is a rookie, man. And this is the last couple years. Kyle Hamilton with an 87, then backs that up with an 86. Jamari Connor, I'm not aware of him, but very good. 81 in 2023. Reed Blankenship, 79, and then followed that up with a 73 for the Eagles, I believe. So let's look for a comparable for Jordan Battle with that 82. We got a 77 out of Justin Reed, a 77 follow that up, and then it really dropped off for him for whatever reason. But, solid. Derwin James with an 87. Jesse Bates with an 80. Javon Holland with an 84. I mean, you typically don't score 80s or even 75 plus as a rookie unless you're going to be a good player. Jordan Battle's got a tremendous shot ending up in this top chunk, this top range, and I hope he's the starter, and I hope they give him every snap he can handle because the development could be key and could make up for the Dax pick. So now we're hoping Dax is a decent or salvageable corner, and the upside here for our Jordan Battle is, let's hope he's a very, very good player, because that would be a huge boost to the Bengals' defensive talent that they'll need over the next few years. So a couple topics there, maybe a few, done in spreadsheet form, as some people are into that stuff, and give me an idea how I look at the schedule, what I'm expecting this year, which are big things, despite some of the roster having some holes. But at the same time, I think it's a good roster. I do, as we get closer into the year, have where I've graded all of the players. You guys have seen the book last year, the First Star training camp book with all the players graded. I will have that in comparison to the AFC North teams. Last year, it said the Ravens had a better roster. I didn't want to believe it. Turned out to be pretty much true. I'm excited to see how that shakes out this year. That's something I'm in the process of doing. So, I can't, when I say they got a few holes, I'm not 100% certain on my take yet and how I feel about the roster. Sometimes I come out and I'm a little surprised. I go, actually they're a little bit better there than their counterparts. And the Browns are dealing with this issue, or the Steelers are dealing with this, or the Ravens are dealing with that. Same as when I grade the draft. You do it in a bubble and focus on your team, but then I do it for all 32 teams, and I go, draft wasn't so bad. It was about average. It was par for the course, or however I may fall on that. But leave comments down below if any of that was confusing, or if you want to challenge me on any of the things we saw, or maybe my method. Things are falling. That means it's time to get out of here. Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics, episode 85. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry. Until next time, Ude.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.